So, Conversation with Coach Kevin. I am your host, Kevin Thornton, life coach and author. Today is going to be a special day for me because those who know me, those who know my journey, know that, and the reason why I'm so passionate about the state of the Black man. This man that I'm going to interview today is part of the reason why I'm on this journey. Those who know my story know that I got coached by Iyanla Van Zant and her team almost 12, 13 years ago about now. And at that time, she felt led back then to give a free 9 weeks coaching session to the first 100 Black men. And I think she ended up having more than 100 at that time. And this great man right here was on her team, and he's one of the people who helped me in those 9 weeks. And luckily, I would stay in contact with him. And so, without further ado, is Coach Prue. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Kevin. 13 years, man.
Man, it's been a long time, but I really appreciate um, what y'all have done for me. It has you all were the vessel that God used to make me realize what my life's purpose was,
Mm,
what my divine assignment is. Um, and so for that, I'm just grateful for that.
bro. I appreciate it. Yanla, she continues to reach out. You already know I'm faculty with Intervisions and have been since 2007. But there are moments where she'll say, "Hey, here's what I'm up to." And like you said, regarding
Yeah.
your shift into the nurturance and the healing of Black males, you got still, right? And said,
Hmm.
"Oh, here are the people to support this journey of movement," and you reached out to me. Well, in like fashion, she has we have a new program that's called Up From Here, and it's another 9 week experience, but it
Hmm.
takes what you experience to an entirely different level, and it's because,
Really?
oh yeah, it takes it to a whole whole new level. Because again, you learn as you move through, and then things change within the scope of society. So that
Mhm.
information gets incorporated, and then as each one of us becomes more aware of something or embodies, for me, some aspect of God that I wasn't aware of, or I knew
Mhm.
intellectually but didn't know on a personal level, then that shifts the offering, right? So we
Right.
still have spirit of a man. That doesn't go anywhere. And that's its own functioning entity, and it serves what it serves. Up From Here is a new piece, again, that is, I think this is the week, this week or
Yeah, I think
the week,
so.
they're launching all of the ads for that. So
Yeah,
we're
'cause
looking.
I saw it. I saw it was a picture of you and her. I think it was on Twitter. I saw it.
That's the coaching program I've created for, and there'll be more, but I've created self-coaching modules because so much of what Intervisions offers is a long-term experience, right? So
Okay.
PDP, hell, yours was 2 weeks or 9 days, right? And then
Mhm.
with whatever the subsequent assignments were. Then there's a 2 month personal development. The ministerial, I think it's 3 to 5 years, but it requires that you come through, if I'm not mistaken, the PDP so that you get that personal foundational piece. The coaching program is 10 or 11 months, right? And
Mhm.
so part of the beauty of being both in Intervisions but outside of it, because I was never a student,
Mhm.
he just called me up and said, "Hey, here's what I see, and I'd like to offer you this possibility." And so I'm able to see stuff and go, not everybody wants to do this long term stuff, and it's not needed for everybody.
Right.
So let's do these 3 hour workshops that are these one hit with 2 week assignments that are optional, right? So the
Right.
workshop really is just 3 hours to set up, whether we're looking at patterns of behavior, or whether we're understanding the nature of who God is in our life, or whether we're dealing with communication, or if we're taking a look at how I master my internal everything, right? Internal
Right.
feelings, internal thoughts, internal beliefs. Let's do them in 3 hours. Let's make it fun and interactive because with me, it can't be long, drawn out, and boring.
Right.
And then use that as a way to move through the use of the tools and skills that they're introduced to so that following the workshop, If they choose to, they've got two
Mm.
weeks. And so what you saw was the ad for that self coaching piece, which we've launched.
So now, are you still doing your part on the Russ Parr morning show as well?
Yeah, God bless. Russ Parr has retired after umpteen decades. So I am, officially there is no Russ Parr morning show, and I was happy to be a part of that for almost 2 consecutive years,
Okay.
um, and to watch him and the team go out, and get their flowers, if you will. So yeah, there's
Mhm.
no more Russ Parr morning show, but if there were, I would still have my Tuesday time slot.
Okay, so how'd you end up doing that?
Well, here's the irony, right? You mentioned going through the program with Ia, and I was on the team. When I said Ia reached out, one
Hmm.
of the two things that she offered was for me to serve as a panelist for it was called Power, something like Pain, Power, and Passion. This was in April, March of 2007. And then she said, I also would like to offer you the opportunity to serve as faculty, right? So that's how you got to know me because I was part of the faculty. And Russ was one of the panelists on that
Okay,
show, right? So we met in 2007, but that wasn't something where we exchanged cards because I don't really do that unless something clicks. And
right.
then he wanted to do something. Wow, this is 24, right?
Hmm.
In 15, I want to say 2015, and he reached out to Ia. She said, "You need to call Pruitt." So he called me, and I did a quick segment. Then 2018 rolled around. We did another quick segment. And then he reached out on a personal level because he wanted to have a conversation about coaching and supporting family. And so we had that conversation. And then I want to say, and I don't think he would have a problem with me sharing, I had the great fortune of being blessed by his father. Like his father was just, Thomas Parr was phenomenal. And that relationship that Thomas and I created just touched Russ's heart. So he was like, yo, dude, I need to do something with it. I don't know what it is. Let me get back to you. And I think it was 24 hours later. He said, get into it with Pruitt. We're going to do it on Tuesdays. Uh, let's go. And I said, brother, I will absolutely follow your lead. So that's how I ended up on his show
Wow.
as what he termed the coaching in-house coach. And I was like, bruh, I'm just happy to play in this rather unique and dynamic way. And, it gave an international audience. So it meant there were more people, that we could touch with those
Mhm.
segments. And I'm appreciative because anybody that listened to them, they were 3.5 minute segments, right? So if
Right,
anything, from one coach to another, Kevin, to know your connection with God and then to know your own mastery set that you can listen to, right? It's 3.5 minutes. Part of that was them reading what the challenge or the issue was, right? So it wasn't like
right,
I had 3 minutes just to speak. It was a minute of that was easily absorbed in the reading
right,
of the letter that was submitted. And then I had the opportunity to present what would nurture them without it being so complex that it made no sense and so
right.
brief that it didn't make sense. So I appreciated that as a way to uplevel my own skill set. How can you do this with what seems to be extemporaneous? But when I'm connected to God, nothing is extemporaneous, right? It just appears that way. And that's what I loved about it because I had no clue what the letter was going to be.
Hmm.
Right. So let me say that again. Anybody that listens to any of the playbacks, there's no setup. So it's not like you and me talking. I say, Kev, I'm gonna bring you on. We got a letter from a woman that's going through a divorce, and she's a single mom. And then we start recording. They
Right,
literally said, "Yo, let's go." And I think 90% of the time our stuff was live. The parts that were pre-recorded, it was still the same flow. All right, Prue, we're counting down 3, 2, 1, and then they went on. Welcome to the Russ Parr. We got a letter, and I had no clue what was on the letter. So that was wonderfully nurturing, right?
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So my question for you to start off is What do you think is needed for our black men in order for them, for one, to feel comfortable to come to a coach or just come to anyone and express what is holding them, how they're feeling, or the traumas that they're going through, because that has to be talked through in order for them to heal. But we are all been raised not to share our feelings. So how do we get past that?
So, all right, not getting past it, embracing it, right? I understand what you mean by it, but I'm led to shift that because for me, and I'm only going to speak for me, Kevin, getting past was tantamount to avoidance on occasions. And
Mm,
avoidance as a short term measure is wonderful. So let me be real clear. It is absolutely okay and permissible to avoid for a short period of time. It's when it becomes a habitual pattern behavior that it creates, a weakening of the spirit, a weakening of the mental muscle, the emotional muscle. And quite frankly, it begins to douse that internal light. So if you've ever had a candle and rather than blow it out, if you put a glass over it, you'll see that it still illuminates and then starts to flicker and starts to die down. Um, so embracing it is just the awareness that, you know what, I got a thought that something's going on, something doesn't feel right. Let's start there. Right. Okay. I also have the thought that people in my life keep talking about coaching or therapy or, and I'm going to use a distinction between therapy and counseling because you can have counsel or seek counsel with a group of friends that have your best
mhm,
and highest interests in heart or with a pastor, right? It can be therapeutic, but the nature of the two is fundamentally different because you can find a lot of therapists that don't deal with the spiritual component and can't
right.
offer counsel. You understand? So,
Exactly.
right. And let's pull it back. I don't care if we're talking barbershop moments, if we're talking about the brothers that run ball and on the side when the game is over and y'all are chilling, that can be a moment where the kings and the princes get together and have healthy conversations. Um, it starts for me with the awareness that something doesn't feel right.
Okay.
And where there is injury, where there has been trauma, where there is harm. It's like I told somebody once I experienced being molested twice in my life. Second and final time I was summer of my 14th birthday. And I remember in my 20s when I really began the healing process on that. The story I would, and I still share to this day, is I was molested once at age 14. I kept my mouth shut for 15 years. So who did greater damage?
Right.
I'll say
You.
it again. The event happened once, but the conversation I had with myself around keeping it secret or it's a shame or I want to kill this person, but how do I kill them and still get to live my life? Right. Like all of those thoughts were in there for 15 years. And
Hmm.
so I think in many cases, the brothers go through something. It doesn't have to look like sexual trauma, but let's be real clear: sexual trauma is prevalent in the Black community,
Hmm.
males and females.
Hmm.
And so, for a brother to avoid that, to get past it, that's usually what they're attempting to do: get past all the thoughts that bring the images and all the corresponding feelings that bring upset, without recognizing that it is in that upset that there are valuable lessons, that it is in the upset, the feeling rage, the feeling discouraged, the feeling hapless, the feeling guilty, the feeling of shame, they all have information embedded in them. So that's why I said if I embrace it, then what I'm doing is I am turning an enemy, something I want to kill or avoid, into a friend.
Okay.
When I invite it in, I invite in everything that comes with that nurtures that journey. That would be the first place: the awareness, the acceptance of the
Okay.
awareness.
Okay. And then with that too, I see a lot of the young men, especially the ones like in the middle 20s to
Mhm.
middle 30s, they feel like if they have not reached their goals at that time, that they're a failure. or or if they have not realized what their purpose is, they feel like if they haven't realized it by earlier, it's too late to search for it, figure it out, and go for it. How would you speak to them?
Hmm. Well, at 57, I'm clear about purpose, but I'm also clear there is an unfolding. I call it spiritual atrophy.
Mhm.
There has been a long-term moment where I said, "Okay, God, I got this," but I ain't really get it. So I'll say it
Mhm.
again. "Okay, God, I got this," but I didn't really have it. And
Right,
so, if what we're talking about is somebody that says, "Hey, I'm in my 20s and I haven't met the mark," then the first thing is to take a look at what am I comparing myself to, right? So, the okay, God, I got this, man. I was using my physical eyes to look at what was in front of me or what was expected of me, whether it was expected of me, by others, and then attempting to use that, what I could see physically, as a way to measure my progress. And I don't know about you, if you've ever been driving in a car, you looked at something off in the distance and the road meanders, sometimes the road meanders away from the thing you're looking at,
right,
right? And you go, well, hold up. I was trying to, like, I feel like I'm moving further away. And so, what I might offer is congratulations on the awareness that something feels off. Isn't that what I just said? Right? I recognize something feels off. Okay, what
right,
is it that feels off? Well, I haven't met my goal. Okay, what was the goal? And then give
right,
them an opportunity to express that succinctly. In expressing it, one of the questions I would ask was, were you attempting to honor your goal for yourself or for somebody else? Because a lot of the goals we have, particularly as Black males, are predicated on what we hear in our families, predicated on
mhm,
what the community says. So if I got folk
right,
that are blinged out and mine ain't, I ain't rocking that, not because it's not my preference, just because I don't have the ends to make that, to make that move, then what I might hear from the sisters, you don't have enough to satisfy me. You don't have enough to keep me.
right,
Now, there's some truth to that. I understand that because I've had that in my own experience. Okay, hold up. I'm not providing, but that's very different than a social norm.
right,
Right, that they're two different things. So I might invite them to take a look at, well, if you're doing it for something else or somebody else, because I'm the man of the house. That's one of
right,
the real challenges in our families, right? I got
mhm,
to take care of my mother and my siblings, right? That's a very real experience. I'm the first one to break through, or I want to break this generational curse or generational
mhm,
tradition. That's very
right,
real in the Black community, particularly among males. And a lot of what we're holding on to, we make a blanketed statement. This is my man, right? This defines me as a man. Well, I would
right,
say being a provider defines you as somebody that's a functional human being, and you may be masculine and or define yourself as male. But if you're going through a shift, if you're going through a developmental thing, then perhaps the goal you didn't reach was only because you didn't possess the proper skill set, or you didn't
right,
implement the skills and the tools in a certain way, or you were attempting to use what worked for you at a lower level at this level. Now, I had the fortune, Kevin, of running in the men's Olympic development category. I was in, my early 30s, and I got picked up to
mhm,
run anchor at Penn Relays. And so I was down at that time with Mo Green and Johnson, like all of the folks, the men and the
yeah,
women that were in and about USA track and field. I was the B team. So anytime you hear them talk about the red team is the A and the B team is the blue, I was the B team.
okay,
Can I tell you that that experience would not allow me to use my old track skills? I had learned on my own how to run more effectively. And so, what I'm offering is that perhaps somebody that's looking at a goal and they're comparing it and they're doing it for something outside of themselves can shift that and say, well, let me do it for
mhm,
me. I ran for me. I didn't really know it was the Olympic development team. What they said was, we need a fourth person to run anchor. Can you run this time? We got 6 weeks to help you get your time down because we're running a pin relay. So it was only a couple of weeks before that I found out what division we were running in. It didn't matter to
that's
me because I was running for me. So the goals that we have, when they're for us, we're better able to nurture them and sustain them. For us, we're better able to receive the feedback that supports course correction.
Okay.
And then I would say something that we rarely hear is men across the ethnic spectrum is be gentle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say, be gentle because you can't do what you don't know. And most of
Mm-hmm.
what jacks us up is we're attempting to do something because we're seeing something with our physical eyes. I'd love to run against Usain Bolt. I ain't gonna put down no times like Usain Bolt today
Right.
or 20 years ago. But that doesn't mean I can't run my fastest time.
Right.
Even at 57, I could still put down times that are comparable to what I was putting down in my 20s and 30s. And if anybody watched these masters run, there are cats in their 70s that are doing 100 meters in under 11 seconds or at 11 seconds, and they're in their
Right.
70s. You do the math. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
So all I'm
Yep.
saying is to anybody that's listening, male or female, if the goal is upsetting you, ask yourself, what is it about the goal that's upsetting? Ask yourself another question. Am I doing this or is the goal really for me or for somebody else? When you
Right.
can make it about you, then that opens you up to hearing what a coach may offer or a therapist may offer or a best friend may offer.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I did a while back, I had a male roundtable discussion, and I had the baby boomers,
Hmm.
Gen X, the millennials, and the Gen Zers all together,
Yeah. I remember you talking about that.
and it was a disaster.
Really?
Yeah, because the baby boomers could not understand the millennials or the Gen Zers
Hmm.
at all, and I think the baby boomers are so far removed, they're so much older. They didn't realize that the Gen Z or the Gen Xers, which is my generation,
Hmm.
um, we are the ones that created the boom of a lot of these now adults being fatherless.
Hmm.
So now the baby boomers are looking at these young men that are millennials and Gen Zers, and they're saying that um, they're saying the feminization of the black man.
Hmm.
And and I said, well, my pushback was, how can they be anything if they haven't seen it?
Hmm.
And if the only energy they have in the household is feminine energy, and you are what you see, how how can we fault them?
Right.
And they couldn't understand that. And so, how do we, as a brotherhood of men,
Hmm.
get a clear understanding of who these young men are, and also be open to who they are and help still nurture them to becoming the men they need to become?
Well, I tell you what, what I find interesting is the feedback that I get when I still do work with folk in middle school and high school, right? So, first of all, when they hear my age, they go, okay, my parents are younger than you by almost 20 years, and they look older than you, right? Like, so there's something about the way I show up, in addition to black don't crack. But what I'm
Right,
getting at is because there is an awareness of who I am, that supersedes any notion you might have about who you think I am when I walk
right,
through the door, right? Or if it's virtual. So I haven't had issues across generations.
mhm,
I've seen them, but they've never been with me. Matter of fact, I can be the
right,
one in the middle of all of that and nurture all the conversations. And part of that is because where I might have gone with that, which I hope answers your question, is to the boomer. When you say you don't understand that, help me understand what it is you do understand, because their experience is the other side of the coin. So I'm just inviting us to contemplate, is it that you don't understand, or you're incapable of understanding, or you choose not to?
Right.
Because where there is an understanding or the openness to at least seek or derive an understanding, it may not come during a 2-hour experience that's virtual. Popcorn doesn't pop. Some of it pops at the end after you turn
Right.
it off the microwave. You feel me? So they may pop days or weeks later. Same thing they said about the Million Man March. All these brothers
Right.
came together. Some of them didn't pop there. Some of that stuff landed for them days, weeks, months, and years later. So being able to humble ourselves to hear a differing perspective facilitates harmony. The only
Right.
way we heal, because that's what this whole conversation is predicated on. That's what you said your journey has taken you to, particularly in this year, healing of Black
Mhm.
men in particular. Healing only occurs where there's harmony. Can't heal a community that believes it's divided. So where am I divided in my thinking and in my beliefs? And then where am
Right.
I projecting that onto someone else? And sometimes the projection can sound like, I don't get it, I don't understand.
Absolutely.
Right? So, again, harmony. Where am I out of balance, out of harmony, anywhere in my life? And wherever that is, if I'm part of a group that comes together to have this discussion, then it too is present in my experience. Right?
Right.
So, what do I get to, who do I get to be that's been different than who I was as I come into the conversation, even if I'm the one coming in for coaching? I can't
Right.
come into coaching, right? Couldn't jump on the track team and tell the coach how to coach. But I could tell the coach something about me that would inform how the coach coached me,
Exactly.
right? So with Pruitt, you don't coach Pruitt the same way you do Thornton. Thornton loves
Right.
you in the knee. Thornton, get out there, get them. With me, you just say, so Pruitt, what are we doing? We're doing 800s, coaches. All right. And I already know. That's all you need to say to me. I know everything that comes with it, because what I'm working through is internal, has nothing to do with the coach. But the minute the coach makes it about the coach, then they give me a way to avoid. Remember, I said be mindful of that term. So now I can
Right.
avoid everything that's going on inside of me and make it about the coach. Coach pain in the butt. Coach don't get it. Coach ain't the one out on the track. I don't run 800s. That's for the milers and the quarter milers. I just do sprints, and 200 is my max. Why I got to run 8? Right. That's me
Mhm.
blaming the coach. So the
Right.
minute I blame, it's the absence of personal responsibility. That means I'm out of balance, out of integrity, out of alignment, out of harmony.
Right.
The minute I take ownership, which if I come back to the boomers not understanding, if it really is I choose not to, they're out of integrity. Because wherever
Right.
they choose not to understand something that's outside of them, we can follow it back to something that they're choosing not to understand that's internal.
Mhm.
And so the brothers raised in female households got it. I've got the other side of the spectrum, Kevin, where I've got the moms that are saying, I've been doling out masculine energy, attempting to balance both. Right. And
Mhm.
what they're really saying is, I'm attempting to balance being task oriented and people oriented, or left
Mhm.
brain dominant, which is more masculine, and the right brain dominant, which is more creative, connected to spirituality and feminine. Right? Which is
Right.
why we've got Kundalini energy, which is the Mary and the Joseph, and it gives birth to Christ's possibility that's within us. All of that
Right.
requires balance. So you're right. When that balance is off, how could we expect somebody who has not seen a model, especially a healthy model of what we
Exactly.
call maleness, or to be a man? You're asking them to make it up. And sometimes those goals get usurped in the process because they've gone as far as they can go with what they
Absolutely. Well said.
know.
Well said. Well said.
Well, it's easy because I'm only talking about me. I've been there, Kevin. I'm still there. I'm still there. Just being able to recognize, hold up, though, and maybe this will support somebody. This is what I heard coming out of one of my meditations. Your what was your ceiling is now your floor.
Mhm.
What was your ceiling is now your floor. So everything that I learned serves as a foundation for the floor, but it's going to be insufficient to
Mhm.
carry me through that new level by itself. So there's more that gets to be added to that, right? That is the elevation, that is the expansion. And I think
Okay.
where love is absent, fear takes its place. And that comes back to the hindrance of
Mhm.
conversations with anybody. That comes back to the hindrance of lack of understanding or willingness to understand. That hinders our ability to see third eye, Christ
Mhm.
consciousness versus see. Because
Right.
this right here be messing me up.
And I think too, what the baby boomers or even our generation have to realize too is the millennial men and the Gen Z men, um, when they're looking for that support from a male figure, they're actually looking for some sort of love
Mhm.
from that older male statement that they never received from their father.
Correct.
And so if we start saying, like you said, um, I don't understand, or I choose not to understand, then all we're doing again is perpetuate rejecting them again.
Correct. At least perceptually, yeah. It feels like,
Perceptually again.
yep, it feels like
Perceptually
negation.
again, this feel like I'm being rejected again. Nobody cares enough about me
Right.
to help me become a better version.
Correct. And then looking at whatever beliefs we hold, one of the ones I got clear on in the last year was, oh snap, I made up that I have to do something or work in order to get love and to keep
Mhm.
it. And I can go back through my life through all the things I lost, having experienced again sexual molestation. You lose something in that problem, meaning something is stripped away in that
Right,
experience.
right.
And so, what's really stripped away is some sense of self or some sense of worth, right? That's a sense of self,
Mhm.
or some connection to what love looks like. And then anything that comes in that says, well, I need to be guarded and protected, which is what you see across generations, right?
Mhm.
Older generation, older than I am, trying to protect what they did not do, right?
Right.
My generation comes in and says, well, my father was present in my life, but didn't really hang out or ask me deep probing questions. But I
Mhm.
got that he loved me, right? And then the
Right.
generation below me, their fathers were there, and they, were loving and nurturing and did all the clothes and went to all the games, right? Like all of the things that began to give them the title. What was the daggone title they came up with? Oh, when brothers were taking care of their nails and they called
Uh, what's the name of
I
that?
couldn't stand it.
I couldn't. Yeah.
Oh, it'll come if it's supposed to. But they made up a term for a brother that took care of himself. But what they were really saying
Mhm.
is, was you as a man taking care of yourself looks like a masculine version of a woman taking care of herself. So
Right.
the only way we understand it is to give you this term. Just like,
Right.
they call it a man
Oh,
bag. They've been doing this
uh,
for years. But what's a
oh,
man?
metro. It was a metrosexual.
Metrosexual. So, like, okay, so the generation of men that was demonstrating love, the demonstration of caring for one's house, one's personal effects, that was labeled that, which had a lot of brothers cut and turn. Like, oh no, you just like quasi calling me gay. That's what you calling me on the
Right.
side because you don't understand it. Why was that term created? Because women didn't understand what they were looking at. Just like the gentlemen, the older men in your round table didn't understand what they were looking at
Right.
because it wasn't their experience. But it doesn't need to be your experience to hear it. It doesn't need to be my experience to understand it. But if I choose empathy, then God will
Mhm.
make some connection between what's being shared and something in my life where I can listen from that place. So I don't have to be a woman to understand sexism. If you tell me that a part of the sexist experience is being devalued and marginalized, all I got to do is look back in my past where I felt devalued or marginalized and listen from that place.
Right.
Okay. So again, a lot of these wonderfully inept terms that we're using really are castigating the men and
Mhm.
then making love feminine energy. And then that becomes something you got to keep at bay. So now we want to master masculinize what it means to love. So that's why we use terms like "I love hard."
Yeah.
I'm not well versed in Sanskrit tradition. I'm not well versed in the Bible, despite being a preacher's kid. That just means I don't know every chapter and verse. I don't know everything that's in the Kabbalah or the Quran, but I
Right.
don't know any of those sacred texts where it ever said you need to love hard, right?
So,
Overcompensation.
mhm. So we're gonna piggyback to what you said because I didn't realize this until I got coached by y'all that there is such a high number of black men who have been sexually molested.
Yes, sir.
Um, when when I went through that process, I didn't realize how much it was like to me. The number one issue was abandonment.
Right.
Second came molestation.
Hmm.
And that's the one we all know that a lot of the men suffer from abandonment.
Hmm.
But the quiet one that nobody likes to talk about is
Correct.
the men suffering from molestation.
Correct.
And I ended up having two that I was coaching.
Hmm.
And I figured one out because he was very hypersexual.
Hmm.
And that's
Yep.
one of the things that happens
Yes, sir.
when you are.
That's what I mean by overcompensation.
Mhm. And and it is because in that mindset, he was molested by someone in his family, and it's like he overcompensating for it. And it's like if you don't give it to him, it's like you don't love him.
Correct. Correct. And that's what I meant by stuff is stripped away. And at its core, what's stripped away, at least from the connection to that person. And I think when you know the person, the first time I was 3, I didn't know there were 2 guys that was on the street right at the corner of my house. I was out playing. The second one was the traditional family member. I can't
Mhm,
say one was necessarily worse than the other, but if I had to lean the scale, I would say the one with when I was 14 because it was a person I knew. So what it does is it strips away love from that
mhm,
relationship. Now, with the
mhm.
strangers, it still strips away love, but it strips away universal love versus
Right.
specific love. You feel me on that? Right?
Mhm,
That is my distinction. I'm not saying that that applies to anybody else's experience. So attempting to regain that because we believe it has been lost. And that's
mhm,
what the fight is. I got to get love back. I got to somehow seal that hole. And what that is for me goes back to where we started at the top of this, which is I'm attempting to avoid.
mhm.
Instead of, hold up, what is it that you think the hypersexual activity is? And some people aren't hypersexual. Some people just moved into OCD and everything got to be
Mhm.
clean and don't move the salt shaker without putting it back in exactly the same spot. Like
Right.
it shows up in a bunch of different ways. And so being able to lean into that experience, challenge with that is most
Mhm.
of the times, the assumption is if I lean into that, I'm replaying. And if I
Yep.
replay it, then it's like it's happening all over again. And there is some truth to that, but depending on the skill set of the one that's supporting the journey, I support people in being able to recall without reliving.
Right.
That's a skill that invites people to go into a place, but with a very different focus. Well, what's the focus, Kevin? The focus is love. It's taking love into the
Yeah.
place, right? So, like, imagine if you went into a cave and got scared by something in the cave, and then I invite you to go back in the cave. You're like, oh, hell no. This time, though, we're going into the cave with floodlights,
Uh-huh.
right? So, oh, I'm going in being able to see. Love allows me to see. I keep pointing to the middle of my head for, right? It's the third eye, it's the pituitary gland. It's what invites vivid images when we sleep, you know. And
Mhm.
so being able to see this experience in a different way invites me to close my eyes, which is inviting me to close down the memory so that I can be present with what I'm experiencing right now. And so you don't
Mhm.
need to take somebody back to a traumatic moment. I don't need to take you to the the site where the plane crashed. I don't need to take you to
Right.
New York where the World Trade was. I watched them build that, right? I don't need to take you there. All I need to do is bring
Right.
that out. And my wife was in New York working and did the walk across the bridge with all the debris and stuff on that day. She doesn't need to go back into
Right.
Manhattan. She can live that and recall it or relive it sitting on the couch. So
Mhm.
the invitation, Kevin, that I'm fostering or offering is that there's something about being able to go into that journey from a space of love. Where we've been
Mhm.
operating when the pendulum swings so far to the other side is fear. That's where those questions, am
Mhm.
I doing it for myself or for somebody else? And a lot of
Yep.
times when we're doing it for somebody else, there's a fear present. When we're doing it for ourselves, love is present. And yes, I can
Mhm.
do it for somebody else and there be love, but then that for me says it needs to start with me doing it for me on every
Right.
flight. Put on your oxygen mask before attempting to support another. And I think this healing process of which you speak, even for the brothers that have experienced some kind of sexual trauma, and there are some brothers that I know firsthand that experience that over a long or extended period of time, right? How
Mhm.
do you undo it? You don't undo it. That's
Right.
where the illusion comes. You can't undo it. Like, you can't drink
Exactly.
a soda and then go back and drink the same soda again.
Right.
Right, that moment has passed, but I can learn
Mhm.
something about why, learn something from the process of having consumed that soda. Oh, I didn't have it when my food was ready, and now I want something with my food, but I was so thirsty. I probably should have had some water first, and then it would have left me with some
Mhm.
soda to have with my meal. Like, we can learn something from it. And sometimes the lesson in that is so deeply profound that it's enough to curse God out, because you go, okay, if you were there in the midst and you allowed egregious, hurtful, devastating experience to occur, then I don't want to have
Mhm.
anything to do with you. So then we attempt to live life on our own with the limited understanding we have, the limited skill sets, the limited contact and information.
Mhm.
And that also exacerbates the loss of love. So,
Right.
right, hypersexual activity doesn't gain love. So you keep doing it, hoping that you'll get what you do. And
Right.
then you find out, well, I got to go on to the next relationship or something traumatic happens. It just reinforces the fear. It reinforces
Exactly.
the pain. Correct. Correct.
My question for you, sir, next you is the key word, which is love.
Hmm.
But I want to start off before that part is we have this gender wars going on right now. The men and the women. You see it all over social media. Um, but it seems like to me, everybody is searching for love. Everybody has an idea or preconceived notion of how a woman should be or a man should be in a relationship.
Hmm.
Most women who are saying what they feel the man should be or act like may not even have a male figure in their household
Hmm.
to even experience that, to know what that criteria really is.
Right.
Same, you know, um, and the men themselves didn't have a father in the household, so they don't know what that duty is for themselves.
Correct.
And but the the for me, the biggest key is that they both are seeking love, but the true question is, do they love the number one person themselves first? Do they love themselves first? Because you're asking people to love you, but do you truly love who you are?
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Well, and that's part of why I shared, that the love piece. Oh, I've got to work to get or sustain love. That ain't got nothing to do with God. That's
Mhm.
Robert Lee Pruitt II making up something based on what he sees, right? Based on past experiences, based on what I'm hearing. But to be able to shift and go, well, okay, let's just entertain that. So I want to love Denny. Okay, how do I do that? And what is that a reflection of? And a lot of times, these wars of which you speak are reflections of ideas we have, not the embodiment of personal experiences. So again, I'm still attempting to fill a void with a notion, right? And the notion, I don't know about you, but until it shows up, thoughts are intangible,
Right.
right? It's just metaphysics. Everybody's a metaphysician. Not everybody knows it or understands it. But the next time you say, like, I want a pizza, and then it shows up at your door, ask how it got to your door. It started as a thought. It's a
Mhm.
simplified example, but it started as a thought. Then you know, engaged in the necessary actions, have to make the call and to pay for it and give the address, and then they show up. It didn't show up without you having the thought. Let's put it that way. Domino's ain't gonna just show up at my door and say, "Oh, crew, we got a
Mhm.
pizza for you," because we sensed something,
Right.
right? So if I don't have an understanding of what we call agape love or unconditional love. And I think those are still man-made constructs, unconditional and agape. I think it's our way of saying we've been calling some stuff love, some aspects of love, but love is only unconditional. And it
Mhm.
doesn't request or require anything of anybody else. And so
Right.
if I don't have a sense, as you said, of who I am, and I love that, because I can have a sense of who I believe I am. And there may be
Mhm.
some things about that I don't like. Or there may be some things about who I am that other people don't like, but because I don't care about them, at least that's what I purport, but inside it registers. Like
Mhm.
all these people don't like me, but I'm gonna just do what I do. See, that's arrogance and ego that kicks in versus
Right.
being able to simply embrace, hold up, what is the feedback? Kind of like the older
Right.
gentleman not being able to take the feedback from the younger gentleman. So it comes
Mhm.
out as I don't understand. No, it might not be you don't understand. It may be you're not open and available to receive. Now let's come back
There
to
you
your
go.
statement on love.
There you
Okay,
go.
whether I love like who I am or who God is, and I recognize I have access to all those attributes, am I open and available to receive it? A whole different conversation. And that's
Right.
the one that says my ego needs to move out of the way in order for me to be available. And then the
Absolutely.
openness really is tantamount to willingness. Am I willing to see this a different way? Am I willing to live in a different way? Am I willing to be in the presence of feedback without thinking I need to take every piece of feedback that's offered? Right?
Mhm.
Am I willing, open, and available to seek counsel? So now we're back to that. Whether it's a coaching moment, oh, I don't have the money. Okay, am I open and available to share what I need and attract to me the viable coach that'll nurture me right where I am, financially
Right.
and mentally, emotionally, right? Am I open and available to express what I believe is true for me? All of what I just said are expressions of love.
Right.
But if what I
I
think
agree.
is only between my legs, and if I think it has to be with this man or with this woman, then what I've done is I've externalized it, which for me means that I've externalized what God's love is. So now I weaken or shortchange my relationship with God because God, I'm only going to love you when I see evidence of it showing up, when it is
Yeah.
the reverse. I choose to
Well
love
said.
without the evidence.
Well said. So you said something about the metaphysics, and I'm big on that as well.
Yeah,
And everything, and I love talking about the fact that we have to understand that we all are energetic beings
correct,
and that we live on a vibrational levels.
correct.
So a lot of times in these male female relationships, you have men seeking women on a certain level,
Mhm,
and they might not be vibrating at that same level.
mhm.
So there's not there's not an alignment there.
Correct.
Same with the women. The women could be vibrating low.
Mhm.
They might have a great job. This is why I think people get messed up. You can have a great job, make good money, have a nice house, have a nice car, but still, vibration wise, vibrate low.
Mhm. Mhm. You vibrated enough to attract. You vibrated at a level that attracted those things, right?
Exactly.
So that's one of the things I always offer in the coaching context. One, I'm the co-coach. I'm not the coach. You are, because whoever
Mhm.
comes to me coach themselves to me. Like however
There you
you
go.
right. Even us talking now, you coached yourself to this. Okay, God, what's the new direction in my life? Okay, I hear it. Who would you have me speak to or invite into this conversation? And then you walk through and say, yo, Prue, right? So that's an example of you coaching yourself. Everything that I have that I think is wonderful and that is just effed up, I coached myself to,
Right.
consciously or unconsciously,
Mhm.
intentionally or unintentionally. So
Intentionally.
what we're talking about is the old school, radio down in the summertime, and you rocking something that I've been dying to hear, right? And it's like,
Mhm.
yo, what station? That's what we used to, what station you on? Because, back in my day, it
Mhm.
was 8-track. Yeah, it was cassette. But early on, it was just radio. In Washington, D.C., it was HUR for me,
Mhm.
96.3
Yeah.
WHUR, right?
Yeah.
And oh my God, if they had Switch on and they were singing, I Call Your Name, Girl. Oh, and it's summertime and the weather's right. And I'm like, yo, I don't even know you, but I'm son, what do you listen? What station? You'd be like 96.3. So what do? I change the frequency
See.
to
Yeah.
match your frequency.
Frequency.
And now we both looking at each other and high-fiving and smiling because we jam into the same song.
Right.
That's what happens with us in our relationships. And one of the things that I said, that I've been saying or sharing for a while is healthy and healthy can stay together. Unhealthy and unhealthy can stay together.
Mhm.
But healthy and unhealthy will not stay together at all, or for long
Mhm.
because the frequencies are off. So you may have dialed up that dude or that honey, but you may not be able to sustain that vibration.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is where the coaching comes in, or the counseling comes in, or the conversations with peers come in, so that now you can strengthen yourself. Right? It's very
Mhm.
different trying to run a race when I had back to back races because my legs would get weakened. And I didn't care that I had 30 minutes in between. I had
Right.
atrophy in my legs. Okay, coach, I don't know how well I'm going to do on this quarter. Right? So
Mhm.
you learn different techniques, not only to bring the energy back up, but to allow for harmony and stillness to take place in the body. Well, that's what
Mhm.
love does. So anytime I am
Right.
feeling still or peaceful or elated or joyful, and I can name it like I'm doing it with you, I'm operating out of peace. Anytime I'm operating out of fear, I still want to be able to label it as feeling
Mhm.
discouraged and dubious or skeptical or offended, right? Okay, got it. That was fear, but the fact that I'm attempting to address it is the act
Mhm.
of love. We call it an act of self-care. Because what I'm saying is,
Right.
let's call it what it is and see what that feeling or emotion has to show me. And then I can apply that and it'll support me in amplifying or sustaining my vibratory frequency.
Right.
When we're avoiding it, we dampen the frequency. So then we
Mhm.
fatigue ourselves and we're not able to sustain it. So then the relationship shows that. The relationship always gives us every relationship, everything in the world. One of the spiritual laws is the law of reflection. Everything in the world is reflecting something back to us about us.
Right.
Right? Question is,
Yep.
am I looking at that reflection here or here?
Mhm.
Because this is going to create distortion. Just like right now, I'm pinching your head. Right? My fingers can't do that to your head, but right now, that's old elementary school thing. I'm pinching your head. Right?
Right.
Perspective is inaccurate, but the information says I've got your head right between my fingers and I can squish it. But if I was there with you, we know good and hell well that would never happen. So that's the difference between seeing and seeing. And I think
So
a lot of
what would
times with the love piece, we're seeing based
mhm.
on what we've done and what other people have done. And yes, as you said, we've attracted the job and the house and even the relationship. But the things that come and go let us know that there's something that hinders our ability to sustain or amplify that frequency. We call that increase, right? So
Right.
somebody says, I just got 3 promotions inside of 2 weeks. That's an amplification.
Mhm.
Person says, all I do is I get the job and then I lose it. They would fall in my line, not with job and losing, but with the getting something and losing it, which I would tie back to having had something stripped away during those sexual encounters. You understand? So
Right.
I'll get something and then it's stripped away. Oh, then I made up, well, I got to work to keep love.
Mhm.
So now I'm running this race to work and
Right.
God ain't present. God's present. I haven't consciously had God be present. Let me take God
Right.
out and put, I think it'll
Froze
be
up.
better,
Oh, okay.
you know, then I'm out of sorts and I'm out of alignment. And that
Right.
makes all the difference in the world.
Right. So one of my last questions is this. When you get the men who are doing the men and or women who are doing the work on themselves,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times the fear happens because they start to see that they are outgrowing their friends.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And they start to outgrow their friends. The conversation's no longer the same. The stuff that they used to talk about, they don't want to talk about no more because they have outgrown that. Things they used to do, they don't want to do no more because they have outgrown that. But they don't want to lose that friend. So what do you tell to those people who are in that space where they outgrew their friend, but they're not at the place yet where they have met their new people, their
Yeah,
new tribe of people yet?
that's a good one. Somebody asked me that. It was a high school student that asked me that. And she said she was changing as part of the reason why she was at the leadership program because it wasn't something that her friends were up to, but she loved it and she recognized she was dumbing herself down in their presence, like to hang with them, but she had this secret love, secret passion. And she said, Prue, like, there, it doesn't matter how hard I try, all the conversations are changing. We don't talk or text as much as we used to. We don't hang out like we used to. And I said, well, here's how I would understand and explain it. The rockets that lift off have to release the boosters. So those friends supported you in getting to this place and this moment in your journey. Should there be a shift in their consciousness, they may continue the journey with you or they may meet you at a later date. But can you be okay with blessing them for who they are and what they've been in your life? And recognizing if you were able to source levels, friends at that level, then where you're moving to, even though you're going through a rather tenuous moment, once you land and get your footing, you will attract exactly what you were complaining about with them, which is they did not nurture your love of leadership and serving people. All they wanted to do was smoke weed or hang out and do Netflix or, and you were fine with all of that to some degree, but you wanted this other expression. Well, this next level for you, if we call it that, will have people that play and talk and think the way you do. And she said, yep, that's exactly what's happening here. I said, so have you exchanged any numbers with the folk? She was like, oh my God, I'm so sad about that. She never answered the question. She said, I'm so sad about leaving all these people because when I go back home, I won't have this. I said, that would be
Right.
great. If my question was, how do you think you're going to feel when you go back home? My question was, did you exchange information? She was like, no. I said, because. And she got quiet. I said, because your thinking has you wedded to the past. Notice you skipped my question to talk about how leaving here was only going to bring you back to more of what didn't work for you, but how
Right.
you love the fact that there are hundreds of youth here from all over the world. Why aren't you switching numbers? That's a question for you to
Mhm.
be. What is preventing me from honoring this? It's because you think you're losing something with that. And then when she got clear, she recognized, hold up, I can still bless them. I said, you might have some friends that ride this journey with you. Should you share with them how you look and feel now? Because I'm willing to believe they haven't seen this version of you. They've heard what you like, but they
Right.
haven't experienced this version of you. What if that's enough to inspire them to look at the passions that they have that you all may never share? But the common thread would be passion. So you may have some friends that get off the couch and they roll with you. And you may have friends that just don't want to mess with you no more. Okay.
Right.
Welcome to life. Do you cry when the leaves fall off the tree and the change of season? Because if you don't cry for that, then don't cry for them because these are just leaves. And you need those leaves to fall off so that there can be a new expression in a new season. So let me say
Absolutely.
this, and then I'm complete with it, Kevin. Anybody that's listening, I didn't say it's going to feel good.
No.
I didn't say it was going to be comfortable. I didn't even say you would like it, but here's what I know to be true. Liking it is a judgment. So I'm probably not even seeing it the way it truly is. I'm seeing it the way I am. So if I'm feeling upset, and if we take an experience like mine over the years and I don't want to lose anything, then I'm clinging on. Well, let's tie that back into your male female relationships or male male relationships or female female relationships, right? You're clinging on to it instead of allowing yourself to release it. And if nothing else, how about resetting? So
Yep.
for anybody that's looking at, oh, I'm going through a breakup of any kind, perhaps it is a breakup because it doesn't honor you. But perhaps there's a version of it where it just doesn't honor you and you all get to reset. But the question is, are you looking at the relationship from here or here? And the third eye is about vision. What is it that you envision for your life? Which comes back to what you said, Kevin, about are you truly loving yourself? Well, if I love myself, I'll allow myself to connect with some vision for my life. Then I'll allow myself to share it. And then in the sharing, I recognize there's no attachment to it, meaning
Right.
I don't need you to do or be anything to participate with this. And if we go to the radio frequency, if where I share from is a vibration, it's either going to be present in the person I'm speaking to or it's not.
I love that.
Plain and simple.
I was gonna ask you to give a party word, but that right there was it. That right there was it right there. So I'm just grateful, sir. Thank you for being on
Brother,
the show.
well, I know you call it a show. I thank you for the conversation because all of these
Okay.
conversations nurture my own journey.
Yeah.
I think you know me well enough to know there isn't anything that I front. And I've
Right.
had people that said, I thought I knew who you were. And I was like, well, what did I say that was misleading? And they can't come up with anything. It was what they
Right.
made up. And I ain't got nothing to do with that. I will
And,
share my story and my experience to date in a way that I believe honors. So
right. And
I thank
I think
you.
what people don't I think people don't realize too, even though we're coaches, we still are on our own life journey still too. And we're still growing and being a higher version of ourselves each and every day. We
Yes.
just have the tools to be able to help teach other people to do the same thing as we're growing as our own selves as well. And so I just like the fact that you are so transparent and vulnerable, because I think that's the best way people can learn
Yeah.
is to see somebody being their truest self and they being their authentic self. So then there's no feeling as if he's better than me, smarter than me. You strip everything away and say, this is who I am, and this is what I'm going to teach you. And I think from that, they're able to just receive all the light that you're willing to give.
Amen.
And for that, I'm grateful to you. So you know you're a bad man. If I still reach out to you after 13 years,
13 years. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
I'm
blessings on your journey. I appreciate you sharing that you recognize this was a pivot, right? And
it's a
it's the
pivot.
restructuring of your show, and it's a restructuring of, I think it's a refinement of your vision. Let me say it that
It,
way.
it, and if I'm transparent and
Please.
if I'm transparent, I had to release the fear that others had placed on me because they was like, because ever since the experience with y'all, I knew that was what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But I have allowed people for so long to say my focus should be on women
Hmm.
or other races
Hmm.
because the black man's not going to pay,
Hmm.
um, and all that type of stuff. So I had to understand, and it took my father say, don't allow someone to put their limitations
Correct.
or their lack onto you.
Correct.
If this is what you're feeling called to do, and this is what the assignment he placed on you, then you do it.
Yes, sir.
And he would tell you and he would teach you other ways to create passive income so you can still be prosperous
Yep.
while being obedient to the assignment.
Yes, sir. Yes,
And
sir.
once I realized that, it clicked.
Yeah.
And then now it's going like it's supposed to go.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's why I said I acknowledge you, and I'm clear. God never gives a vision without giving the provision. We just may
Right.
not know when, other than it'll come in its appointed time. But yeah,
Right.
so
And
blessings
I
for
think
all.
I think a lot of times we know he gives us a vision, then we don't be still enough to ask the necessary questions of how do I go about going through this vision? How do I operate it?
Yeah.
I start once I left y'all, I knew then I'm gonna be a coach.
Yeah.
But then I never I wasn't still enough to say, okay, guide me in the right direction
Right.
of how you want this being done. Because what I failed to realize, a lot of the stuff I was doing early on was just fee for service.
Hmm.
And so what happens if, like I got sick.
Hmm.
And so now I wasn't making no money because it's everything fee for service. So
Right.
now in those 30 days that I was in the hospital, he said, okay, this is what you're gonna do, and this is what you're gonna go about doing it. Everything that represents you, you find a way to monetize it, whether it's t-shirts, hoodies, a class, a book, wherever it is that you can make money.
Right.
That's your passive income. Because at the end of the day, your assignment is always gonna be fee for service.
That's right.
And
Amen.
so it took me to get to a certain space where he had to like sit me down, or I had to
Hmm.
lay down, and for him to tell me what to do and how to get it done.
Yeah.
And so I really do appreciate you, sir. I'm
Amen.
proud of what you're doing.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate that.
if you ever see a gala, tell her. Let me tell you one time, Coach. I had reached out to her when I had co-authored a book, 'cause I had mentioned that experience that we all did together,
Okay.
and I wanted her to be on the podcast. And she, I was driving down the street, and I got a notification on my phone, and it said Iyanla, and I got excited, and I almost wrecked my car. And so I pulled into a shopping plaza and I parked my car, and she had responded to me, and she said that she remembered me, uh, and she'd be honored to do it. But at that time, she was going on tour,
Okay.
and I said, okay. So I said at that moment, even if she wasn't able to come at that time, I knew I was at a certain vibration to where she responded back to me.
Yes, sir.
And so I said, so I'm keep on trying because my ultimate goal is to have a conversation with her so I can personally say thank you.
Yeah. I'll
To say thank
certainly let her know.
for putting me on this journey, the understanding that uh, it takes all of us together to help make our community become the best version of themselves.
Yes.
Because I fit a certain core of people, they like my style. There'll be certain people who like your style, and there'll be some people who like Iyanla's style. But we all do it. We all do the same thing. We all have the same mission, which is to help heal our community,
That's right.
help heal our men. Then the greatest is going to come.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Hey, brother. Thank you. Much love to you.
All right. I'll talk to you again soon.
I look forward to it. Take
All
care of
right.
yourself. Be
Take care.
gentle. Yes, sir.
Bye.